Aquilo. Season 8. Chapter 1. On the topic of raccoons. I thought we had a deal. A truce, an arrangement, whatever you want to call it. I assumed we had an understanding that they would stay out of my things, and in return, I would provide them pastries aplenty. For the most part, the vast majority of the raccoons that dwell behind the Aquilo have kept to their part of the bargain. Oh, once in a blue moon, I'll find one scratching at the metal kickplate if I'm late with their daily serving. Usually, though, they wait patiently at the bottom of their dumpster, being their raccoon selves and doing their raccoon things until I offer them the day's unsellables. It's a fruitful arrangement. I can get rid of any food that's been dropped, nibbled on, but not eaten, or is getting a little long in the tooth to be served to customers. The furry brigands get free, easy meals, and the locals don't have to chase raccoons out of their garbage every other day. Also, while it hasn't been of any use lately, I also have a sort of supernatural alarm system at my back door. These raccoons are old. Older than any scavenging mammal has a right to be. And through their decades of life, they've learned many tricks, one of which is the smell of the demonic, the stench of the undead, and the aroma of the spiritual. Aquilo has always had a unique relationship with these raccoons, and they've enjoyed an almost mascot-like standing in the community. That is a luxury enjoyed by those who are not on the front line of dealing with the animals. So, imagine my annoyance when I woke up one morning a few weeks ago to find a raccoon sleeping soundly on my kitchen counter. What unprecedented audacity, I thought at the time. But, as with many things in Aquilo, what is one day an affront can quickly become habit. The raccoon in question was my little favorite, Brioche. She and I have had our share of misadventures together, and I've become somewhat fond of the little scavenger. I'll keep one of her namesake pastries aside for her when I can, and I refresh the little ribbon I put around her neck when it becomes too damaged or dirty. What set me into a rage one day became frustrating the next, then annoying, and, at long last, habitual. Now I make my morning coffee under the watchful eye of a groggy raccoon, or even wake up with her rolled up at the foot of my bed. This morning, I find her fiddling with the bread box on the counter. Pre-dawn fog in my brain makes it hard to remember if it's the raccoon's efforts that woke me or my alarm. Regardless, here I am, the soft orange of the kitchen light burning my eyes as I go through the motions of getting ready for work. Don't play with that. I shove Brioche away from the bread box. Raccoons are a little like cats, but even more so. They possess the same worst traits, but oversaturated. Especially the century-old raccoons of Aquilo. They're smart, and they're pig-headed. I've barely pushed Brioche off the bread box that she's already going at it again. Stop it! There's nothing to eat in there. I buy peace by grabbing a cookie from an apple-shaped ceramic jar and tossing it to her. Coffee percolates while I pick what I'm going to wear. A long floral print skirt with lace ruffle and a white blouse, and get ready to shower. It's going to be a long day, and I'm unlikely to get a second to myself, so I intend to enjoy whatever moment I can. I leave half an inch of coffee in my mug and watch Brioche dunk half a cookie into what's left. Through it all, my thoughts are on the bread box. The raccoon seems to have forgotten about it, but I wonder if she knows. The sky is dark as we're about to bid farewell to another summer. I think back fondly on those few weeks when there would be sunlight as I went down to the cafe. Not today, I'm afraid. The sky is a beautiful but dark purple, with only a thin light of orange on the horizon. I go through preparing my shift, bake my croissants and rolls, and assemble the menu I prepared last night. Much like the dishes that I cycle through endlessly in the kitchen, it's rinse and repeat. Once ready, I flip the half-dozen switches that turn on the lights to the dining room, and I unlock the front door. Finally, I flip the sign from closed to open and welcome my first customers. I'm thankful that things have settled into some sort of mundane routine. Sometimes I'll be tempted to long for the days when Aquilo provided more excitement. When that happens, I take stock of all my scars, touching the one on my lower abdomen and brushing the one on my left arm. Each is a reminder of times when my life was almost brought to a sudden end in this town. There are other scars, of course, those intangible by nature but more difficult to heal as a result. But I can't complain. What was it Olivia Fig once told me? I like my cracks and my bumps, and damn be whoever tries to smooth them out. I get that now. Turns out people aren't just the sum of their parts, but also their wounds. You can't sculpt a statue without chipping at the rock, and arithmetic involves subtractions as much as additions. Here you go. I hand Michael, the painter, change for his breakfast and coffee. I'm glad to see the palate of my clientele has become more refined over the years I've been here. I can now serve them cheese scones with eggs and jalapeno chutney, and they don't even bat an eye. Smiles and pleasantries are exchanged as I dole out coffee, cheesecake donuts, tea, and more scones. A few people stop to ask about the high tea I'll be hosting on Sunday, and it looks like I'll have a full house for that event. It's with a fairly buoyant mood that I welcome Olivia and Annabelle. It's about 11, which is usually when the former comes in for coffee and a bite to eat before going off to meet with retailers and distributors. The fig cider business has been doing well, and Annabelle is carrying a crate of apples under one arm while holding the door open for Olivia with the other. Olivia's recovery has been going well, and while she's still using a cane to assist her walking, she does so with the energy and vim of a circus ringmaster. That is to say, the cane is 3 parts theater and 1 part physical assistance. "These better be for me, ma'am," I call out, wiping my hands on my apron. "Mm-hmm," she says, handing the crate over the counter. "I wouldn't dream of bringing apples in here if they weren't meant to be cooked." I let my friends take their usual seat at the counter while I put the crate in the kitchen. Strudels and fritters dance in my head as I imagine new and interesting ways to prepare them. "What about you?" I ask, pulling out mugs and plates. "A bit early to be dropping by." Annabelle recognizes I'm talking to her, putting her bag on the next stool. She's got that rascal smile she gets when there's mischief afoot.
"Ah, well,"
she says, pulling out a spiral notebook and a rainbow of pens.
"Miss Fig and I have business to discuss. But also, have you looked at the calendar this morning?"
Frowning, I grind some fresh coffee and stare my friend down. I'm not one to forget anniversaries, birthdays, or holidays. If there's a milestone in someone's life, I'm usually all over it, especially if it can be commemorated with something to eat. Annabelle is a January baby, and Olivia would stab anyone who tried to make a big deal of her birthday. I scan the dining room, looking for whoever else I might have forgotten, but nothing jumps out at me. I even catch myself wondering if I forgot anything about my own life. We celebrated the anniversary of my moving to Aquilo last week, so that can't be it. My own birthday is months from now.
"It's the equinox tomorrow,"
Annabelle explains, stretching her grin to an unnatural width. It all comes tumbling down in my mind. The autumnal equinox, when the hell gate in the woods cracks open, allowing demons to spill forth into our world. Only through the brave actions of a single chosen warrior are the tides of infernal creatures held back and the gate closed for another 6 months. Except, not this year. We destroyed the hell gate last spring. As if on cue, the 2 women who share duties as mayors of Aquilo walk in, setting the chimes singing and the assembled patrons staring. The Honorable Marie Belle Byrne walks up to the counter, allowing Mayor Veronique Lagacé, Annabelle's mother, to greet her daughter. They look somber, and although pleasantries are exchanged and food is purchased, there's no warmth or hunger behind those actions. I see the pair every day, and every day I serve the mayors the same thing. I only have to ask what they want if there's a change to the menu. There's even a table reserved for them where they get to sit on their respective side of the border while still sharing their meal. It's all very ceremonial.
Do they know?
I ask Annabelle as she watches her mother sit down.
I told Marie Belle,
She explains with a satisfied grin.
and we agreed to keep Mom in the dark.
Child, Olivia interrupts. You did not.
Oh, I absolutely did. Now watch.
With the rest of the Aquilo, we hold our breath and observe. This is a quiet ritual that's been happening in the cafe every 6 months for who knows how long. Lagacé and Byrne are not the first mayors to shoulder this responsibility. Veronique pulls out an ornate coin that she places on the table. This is the moment of truth, when it's decided who will be the one to fill the arcane shoes of defender to our town and community. Marie Belle picks up the coin and flips it through the air, catching it in her wounded hand. There's a tense moment during which Annabelle sneezes. It's an innocuous distraction, one that is frowned upon by the assembled crowd. Everyone gives her a quick look before turning their attention back to the ritual. Mayor Marie Belle Byrne opens her hand, and Veronique's face calcifies into a mask of relief and defiance. I don't think anyone wanted Mayor Byrne to go off again to face the demonic hordes on her own. No one will disagree that she's already given too much to her duties. But when the two hug and Marie Belle looks over to the counter where Annabelle is sitting, it isn't relief that I read in her expression, but mirth.
You have no idea,
Annabelle says while winking at Mayor Byrne,
how hard she had to work to learn to palm a coin with only 3 fingers.
You taught your mom's colleague how to cheat at a coin toss just for a prank? The afternoon at the Aquilo went on without further drama or incident. When Stefan arrived to take over for the evening shift, we traded coffee and tea for beers and cocktails, and my workplace for Annabelle's. There was a small fire at Chez Louis a month and a half ago. Nothing serious, but they took the opportunity to renovate and upgrade. While it may have lost some of its dive bar charm, the tavern does feel refreshed and more inviting to a younger crowd, and Annabelle managed to secure employment as a bartender.
Wrong,
She corrects while collecting glasses and tips from down the bar.
I taught myself how to palm a coin, then I showed Marie Belle how to do it. Picture, if you will, my mother, the Honorable Veronique Lagacé. Tomorrow she'll gear up and get whatever rituals she needs ready. Maybe she'll have a light dinner. Maybe she'll be too nervous to eat. Then, around midnight, she'll make her way into the woods behind Pickering's farm, ready to fight to the death against demons to close the Hellgate, only to find...
She shows me a $2 coin taken from the tips she just collected. Then, with a twist of her wrist and a flip of her hand, the coin is gone.
There's no Hellgate, no demons.
I take a long sip of my gin and tonic, raising an eyebrow at Annabelle's trick. It's not that I'm not impressed, but when you hang with immortal raccoons and deal with ghosts on a semi-regular basis, basic legerdemain loses some of its spark. Seems uncharacteristically cruel for you, I say, with a touch of friendly disdain. Downright mean, if you ask me, Petunia chimes in. She and Fred joined us as we left the Aquilo. We're trying to make an evening of things. After all, the equinox is a special time in a place like Aquilo, even without the Hellgate to contend with. Besides, it's Friday, and we all deserve to unwind.
Please,
Annabelle retorts.
After all that woman has put me through, it's a wonder my back isn't broken from the weight of expectations. Besides, why would I tell her about the Hellgate being gone? It's not like she ever told me much about it in the first place. What goes around and all that.
As she talks, Annabelle playfully gesticulates her disdain for her mother's behavior, never showing the coin she still got hidden between her fingers. Things have gotten better between the two. I don't know Veronique very well, which makes it difficult to predict if the taciturn public official will find mirth or relief in her daughter's prank.
Besides,
She concludes,
if it was that bad a prank, Marie Belle wouldn't have gotten on board. Oops.
She drops the coin on the counter. It bounces twice before rolling on its edge for a second and falling over. Heads.
Ah, there she is.
Annabelle pockets the coin and wipes her hands on her apron.
Louie.
Olivia has arrived, and she looks as comfortable here as she does in the Aquilo. Seldom have I seen the illustrious Ms. Fig not take possession of a space with her presence. Even while leaning on her cane, a six-pack of Fig's Orchard cider in the other hand, she still projects an aura of unassailable confidence. Here, she's not a friend gifting me a crate of apples, but rather the well-dressed sales representative for Fig's Orchard Cidery. She reminds me of Helen Edna, notary public, with her white blouse and matching skirt and jacket. Louis comes out from the back, carrying a pressure keg over his shoulder. Short and stocky, he's a powerhouse of a man. His hair absent, his gut prodigious. He's that kind of fat muscular that doesn't look out of place in a tavern or on a motorcycle. What he lacks on his scalp is more than made up for with a bushy beard the color of a thunderstorm. Yet, since the renovations, he looks out of place in his own establishment, and there's something in his eyes that tells the story of a man unsure about the passage of time. "Ms. Fig," he grumbles without offering a hand.
"Mr. Brebeuf,"
Olivia answers with that affable smile of hers.
"Are we finally doing this, after all these years?"
With little effort, Louis puts his keg on the counter, and then he takes the bottles proffered by Olivia and gestures to the stool at the end of the bar. "Yeah, well," he points to Annabelle. "You can thank that one. She's strong-armed me into offering fruity cocktails and girly drinks. No offense. Seems like ciders aren't that far a stretch." The early evening sun still shines through the front door of the bar as Louis, Annabelle, and Olivia drink ciders, talk terms, and discuss business. Louis doesn't seem impressed by Olivia's wares, but neither is he disdainful. I have a feeling that even if he enjoyed the cider, it would take some work to coax a public admission of that fact. All three are leaning over papers, Olivia doing quick calculations on her phone and jotting down the results. I feel lucky that Doris left me with a turnkey operation that requires very little bargaining and haggling with suppliers. Just having one employee has been a steep enough learning curve. "Look at her," Petunia says, playing with the paper umbrella in her drink. "For all she says about her mom, she's not an apple that fell far from the tree." "Politics run thick in the Lagasse veins?" I ask, sucking on an ice cube from my now-finished gin and tonic. Petunia purses her lips, making a show of choosing her words. "No," she says, drawing out the word. "She's just good at building bridges between people. That was Mayor Lagasse's shtick, creating these links between this person and that until everyone felt like they owed her something. At least, that's how my parents explained it." Makes sense, I think. The political past of Aquilo is a little murky to me, but the way people talk, Byrne and Lagasse have been mayors since forever, and if there's an election over the horizon, I expect they'll run unopposed. Both our drinks are now empty, and neither Petunia or I came here to be thirsty, but Louis and Annabelle are still chatting with Olivia. The three of them taunt us by tasting the Fig's delicious cold ciders. I recognize the yellow label of their pear-apple mix and yearn to have a bottle of my own. I make a killer apple cider donut with it, usually during the late fall.
"Aw, crap on a stick,"
Petunia hisses out of nowhere.
"Hide me."
For a second, it looks like she's about to jump behind the bar, but instead crouches on her stool, putting me between her and the door. It's not long before I understand the source of her distress. 5 people file into Louis's tavern. They're hard to recognize without their brilliant white robes, but once their faces are no longer silhouetted by the light from the door, I see who they are. Pilvists. Cloud worshippers. Or rather, that's what they used to be. A tall blonde man with braids in his hair leads the group down towards the back of the bar. They each nod and smile at me. All are customers, and I see most nearly every day.
"Why, hello, Miriam,"
a short, bubbly woman says. "Ms. Dufour," a man with deep red hair and a beard like fire and flannels fit for a lumberjack starts. "When are you going to have those brownies with the—" He stops short, his pleasantries aborted as he notices Petunia. They all stop upon seeing her. The bubbly woman bows her head and puts her hands together. Another woman, thin with sun-kissed skin, covers her mouth in awe. Ian urges them to keep moving, but they all pay some sort of reverence, some going as far as to reach out and touch Petunia's arm. The group ends up at a table far in the back, but I can feel the weight of their combined gaze on us.
I hate this,
Petunia complains with quiet vitriol.
Yeah, I say. I get you, but also, can you blame them? As far as they're concerned, you died and came back to save their goddess. I remember, thanks. Just be grateful they haven't started worshipping you instead.
No sooner do the words leave my lips than I realize my mistake.
Haven't they?
Petunia correctly sets me straight. She's right. I took away the Pilvists' deity, essentially putting an end to a crucial facet of their lives. From nowhere, I came and plucked God from their lives. What did I expect they would do with their faith? Right now, it looks benign enough, but it wouldn't take much for things to start down a slippery slope. Looking at them now, the way they stare at Petunia with unmasked adoration, I know for a fact my friend wants no part of their religious proclivities. In a perfect world, that would force the fervor to die down, but nature abhors a vacuum, and whatever she doesn't provide, they'll make up for themselves. And when Petunia inevitably fails to live up to their fantasy...
Order me another G&T whenever, if ever, Annabelle is done.
If Annabelle is good at building bridges between people, maybe I have a skill for burning them down. The noise of the street dies down the further from the front door I get, and the house music gets louder to balance things out. Like a prophet or an envoy, the Pilvists shift their focus in my direction. What message do I bring them? Lacking tablets in my arms, what words do I have? Hey, I start, but the words fail me.
Just so you know, might be a while before we get drinks again. The owner and bartender are in a meeting.
I point towards Louis, Olivia, and Annabelle. They nod, clearly unsatisfied with the reason of my visit to their table.
Thanks for letting us know, Miriam,
Ian says, his ever-present calm smile beaming up at me.
And I'm sorry for our reaction seeing Petunia. We're all collectively moving on at our own pace, I assure you.
His beatific gaze turns back to his four companions. Each averts their eye one way or another. Some in shame, others look back at Petunia as if stealing one final look before being admonished.
Yeah.
I pull a chair from the neighboring table to sit opposite Ian. Like all the furniture, it's cheap but new.
About that. Pete ran away from Aquilo once because of you guys. It'd be nice if maybe she didn't have to do that again. I don't want to lose some of my best customers, but I see how you all act around her at the cafe.
The cult is dead, but Ian lives on as their leader in so many ways. Even Firebeard, for all his stature, defers to him in this matter. It's still strange seeing Ian in plain clothes. The cargo pants and sky blue short-sleeve button-up clash with his braids. He looks like a teenager struggling to reinvent himself, which I suppose he is, after a fashion. Of course, he says, steepling his long fingers. It's just the circumstances. She was called back into the bosom of our mother and birthed anew, and we... No, I interrupt. See, this is exactly the kind of thing that you all have to stop. Petunia's just a normal person trying to live as normal a life as anyone can in Aquilo. But she... No, I interrupt again and get up. Shut up. Please find some other way to move on or something else to worship. I don't know if the Pilvists ever did stop gawking at Pete. First, we ignored them, then we forgot about them. By the time they left, we'd gotten tipsy enough not to notice. Despite Annabelle's presence in our group, my friends and I don't tend to get drunk frequently. In fact, if anything, Annabelle is often the moderate hand that holds us closer to sobriety. She keeps a close count of how much and what she serves, factoring in the time between each drink. She's quick to put glasses of ice water in front of customers so they remain hydrated. I'm not sure how Louis feels about his patrons drinking water instead of beer, but the tavern is a calmer, more enjoyable hangout as a result. All that being said, we do occasionally indulge a little too much. It's a warm night in Aquilo. Petunia, Fred, and I waited for Annabelle to finish her shift at 1 a.m. before going back home. We might have been a little loud as we made our way down Rue Principale, talking and joking and poking fun at each other. Ever tactless Fred tried to mock the whole Pilvis situation, but the mild chuckles he got were enough to steer him away from that line of humor. We abandoned the couple at the corner of Carver and Rue Principale, trusting that they're sober enough to make it home. That's probably the weirdest thing about this evening of impromptu revelry. The night feels safe. I'm doing poached salmon with a fennel sauce as an appetizer, I explained to a semi-interested Annabelle as we pass Aquilo Border Park. I'll substitute the fish for stuffed portobello for Petunia. What? Annabelle is nudging me with her elbow, jutting out her chin to a point further down the street. Rude of her to interrupt me like that. It's no random menu I'm rattling off. We're all supposed to meet again tomorrow night for a meal. No, a feast to celebrate the arrival of fall. I attempt to rub the exhaustion from my eyes and focus on what's got my friends so concerned. Aren't we done with the mysterious threats? Is the worst not behind us? Right? What the hell is she doing here? I ask, more surprised than annoyed. Sitting cross-legged on the sidewalk, her back resting on the front door to my cafe, is Ophelia. As is her habit, she's knitting. And as always, she's a little overdressed for the weather. I hate to admit we're wearing very similar skirts, but she's got a shawl over her shoulders that I can't imagine is comfortable with this heat and humidity. In her lap, rolled up in a ball, her orange cat watches our approach. We make no effort to hasten our pace, passing the edge of Aquilo Border Park without a hint of hurry. While hostilities between the unannounced visitor and me have died down, I still find talking to her exhausting. Tired and tipsy? I can't imagine how monumental a task having a conversation would be. You know, I call out from a few dozen feet, we don't open for another 5 hours. Miriam, Annabelle, she greets us while pushing herself to her feet. I'm not here for tea and pastries. William drops to the ground, an indignant look on his face before jumping into his owner's oversized handbag. Ophelia brushes the dust from her skirt, scowling at every little smudge she finds. Liar, I say, struggling to put a key into the cafe's lock. Ophelia picks up her bag and tilts her head, that little self-satisfied smile of hers that I still despise so much creeps onto her lips. Are you drunk?
Yes,
Annabelle answers before I can say anything. I'm tipsy, I correct, finally getting the door open. Holding it, I allow my friends, I suppose, into the cafe and lock up behind them. I flip the switch to the lights above the counter and register, but keep the dining room in the dark. This has become my de facto configuration for when I want to use the Aquilo, but without attracting would-be customers. Tipsy I may be, but I can make the basics in my sleep. Before either Ophelia or Annabelle have even taken a seat at the counter, exchanging pleasantries, I've already woken the evil coffee machine and filled a kettle. How long were you waiting out there? I ask while rummaging through the refrigerator. Gulliver and I got here around 11. I pull out some tea and milk and then attempt a quick plating of cookies and brownies. The plan had always been that I'd have a snack before bed anyway. Oh, and where is the big guy? I try not to sound too eager. We haven't seen Gulliver in almost a week, and then for only an hour. Where he used to spend entire afternoons eating at the counter and chatting with Olivia and me, he's become too busy for that sort of frivolity. Business must be going well, I suppose. He hung out with me for an hour, but had to get on the road. He has a shipment to drive from Quebec back to Montreal tomorrow morning. My modest offering of drinks and food ready, I set it before them. Coffee for Annabelle and me, a basic chai latte for my surprise guest. At this hour? Ophelia asks, picking up her cup despite the objection. Would you rather warm milk? Annabelle chuckles at my question. She might be a people person, but she never fails to enjoy when someone else lacks her tact. I take my seat opposite them and pour a little cream into my coffee along with copious amounts of sugar. Annabelle sips hers black, but Ophelia takes a little cream that she then pours into the saucer of her cup, keeping it near the counter's edge for William to sip.
I thought it wasn't good to give cats milk and cream,
Annabelle asks. The orange cat hisses at the suggestion that he shouldn't have his treat before going back and licking it up.
It's in moderation,
Ophelia says, scratching between an indifferent William's ears.
Besides, he's more than a garden variety cat.
Ah, yes, I remind myself. The cat is her familiar, though the little knitting witch has yet to offer a proper explanation as to what that means. I've only met one other so-called familiar, and it led to a rather bizarre series of events. If he vomits, you're cleaning it up, I threaten as a joke.
I'm assuming this isn't a social call? Would it be so bad if it were?
Ophelia asks, bringing the cup of tea to her lips and taking a brownie from the serving plate. Annabelle, imitating one of Olivia Figg's signature moves, hides the bottom of her face behind her mug and smiles.
She won't admit it,
my friend says.
But I'm sure Miriam would be delighted if it were, right?
Always building bridges. But she's wrong. I'm sure one day I'll grow to maybe become somewhat fond of my ex-nemesis, but delighted? That is a bridge too far. Sure, I agree to keep the peace.
But is it, though?
The mask of pleasantries drops from Ophelia. She doesn't exactly become all business yet, however. Instead, she reveals a side of herself that I've seldom seen. One that I assume she keeps for people like Gulliver and any other real friends she might have, if any. Her features soften and her eyebrows knit themselves above her eyes. Her thin lips, so used to spewing vitriol, tremble a little before settling into a timid, straight line. She puts her uneaten brownie into the saucer, crowding her cup and depriving William of his feast. Then, bending over the seat to her right, she rummages through her bag. 2, 3, and 4 skeins of colorful wool make their way to the counter, along with a pair of needles threaded into a half-finished garment. The brownies and cookies are my magic, and this is hers. Finally, from the very bottom of her sizable bag, she pulls out a package. No bigger than a honeydew, loosely wrapped in brown paper, she puts the prize next to her cup, right in front of me. She does so with such care and reverence that you'd think she were manipulating a souffle or an atomic bomb. Even William watches her movements with polite deference. Short fingers, made nimble by years of expert knitting and crochet, make short work of unpacking the item that seems so important to Ophelia. When she peels back the brown paper, pulling each corner like the petals of a tulip, it reveals the macabre grin of a human skull. "Tomorrow's the equinox," she says, as Annabelle and I lean in for a better look. "And I need you to help me bury my mother." Aquilo is written by J.F. Dubow and narrated and produced by me, Amy Frost. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast platform. Want to support the show? Buy us a coffee. Go to ko-fi.com/Aquilo to donate. Aquilo has a Patreon. Visit patreon.com/Aquilo for details. Follow us on Facebook, Blue Sky, and Instagram under the username Aquilo.